Thanks, guys. On this week's ATV interview, we're sitting down with Foundry 42 studio director and global head of production, Mr. Erin Roberts. Erin, how you doing, man?
It's good to see you again.
Good. So thanks for taking the time to be on the show here. You're only in town for this week, and you've been very busy. You've been in meetings with Ricky and Tony and discussing all manner of...
Yeah, we have Todd in town as well, just doing a bunch of design stuff on the persistent universe side of things.
Very cool.
So working on everything like that, and but yeah, it's been great being here and seeing the new office take shape. It's fantastic.
It's getting there. I think we're not quite in final art yet. I think we're past gray box, but we're getting there. We'll be flight ready here real soon. So I wanted to talk to you about Foundry 42. Since you guys came on board, we've gained hundreds of thousands of new citizens, and we don't always get to showcase the work that you guys do because our community department is located here in LA. So I wanted to take the time to really let people know what Foundry 42 is, what they contribute to Star Citizen, and then maybe at the end of this take a peek forward. So why don't you let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
What were you doing before Foundry 42?
So I was working before I joined the great team here, I was working for 10 years on the Lego games. And we were working on all the games such as Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones. That's kind of what I was doing, and that was I came back to the UK from the US about 10 years before, and that's when I started working with Traveller's Tales and having a great time there, doing stuff with them.
I remember the very first time we met, Ben gave me crap because I was in a room with you and Chris, and he was like, I'm like Chris Roberts. Yeah, Chris Roberts is a cool one. And then I found out you made the Lego games, and I made a beeline to you to talk to you about the Lego games. I don't expect you to remember that. And Ben's like, do you like the Lego games? I'm like, yeah, I love the Lego games. So it was like my wing commander. Well, not quite my wing commander for Ben, but nothing's like his wing commander for Ben. Now, before that, even going back, you've worked with Chris on many games, the Privateer series specifically.
Yeah, no, I started working with way back. And he was, originally he used to make games on the BBC Micro, and the guys in the UK will know what we're talking about there. And before he went to the US, and then he made a game called Times of Law for the Commodore, and I helped out a little bit on that, not much. The game I really did most of my, I guess, real sort of work on was the original Wing Commander, where I did a lot of scripting for the AI and a bunch of testing work back when Origin was a very small company and we were just getting things going. And then after that, from Wing Commander, I then worked on Privateer and finished that up later on. And then it was Strike Commander, I believe after that I worked on. And then after Strike Commander, I believe Electronic Arts bought Origin, and I then transferred back to the UK for a while. I've been back and forth in the UK and US a few times, and that's where I basically produced and directed Privateer to the Darkening. And then went back to America when Chris started Digital Anvil, and I joined him to do that, and that's when I worked on Star Lancer and stuff like that, with actually a few of the guys who work with me now in the UK office on Star Citizen.
All right. So you were working on the Lego games, and it's time, Chris decides, or you decide, tell me how did it come about we wanted to create a UK studio?
So it was, let me think about it now, it must have been 2013, it would have been August, because it was just after Gamescom, and Chris had just come back from Gamescom when I think they first showed the Hangar. So it was probably about, it was just about 12 months, less than 12 months in, I guess, starting. And so Chris came back through to the UK and came through to visit me. And basically we just started talking and we just talking about it all, showing the stuff, and thought nothing about it, had a nice weekend, doing stuff together and things like that. And then I was actually driving to the airport, and just as we're pulling to the airport, Chris literally, I drop him off, we're at the lay-by, and of course you're not allowed to wait. And Chris just opens the door and just says to me, why don't you come and join us? And I'm just saying, you could have had this conversation 2 days earlier when we actually had lots of time. And he just said that. He said, well, have a think about it, and then we'll talk when I get back to the States. And so it was kind of one of these funny moments where I was going, okay, and then we got the conversation going, and then it all came from there. And the more I thought about it, I really enjoyed working on the Lego games, and I didn't think I would leave doing that, but this was just such an opportunity to go and do something special in a way it's not been done before. It's a challenge, you know, in terms of doing it in this way. And I just kind of felt like I had like, you know, getting on a bit longer in the tooth now, and I felt like there's one last big challenge in me, and then this is a challenge. Yes. And I love challenges, and I kind of do enjoy the stress and of making the sort of stuff work, and I've built a few companies up, and I do kind of get the kick out of doing that, because I built up my studio and Lego and the Lego games up as well, from literally those 7 of us, and then we grew it to like 200 odd, and I just kind of enjoyed that, trying to get the team together, working on stuff like that. And so and it was just going to get and work with Chris again as well. I always enjoyed working with Chris because although he's a very hard taskmaster in terms of what he's demanding of what he wants to see, but that's why he makes that level of game he does, because he's not just trying to, you know, hit a certain level. He's not shooting for the moon, he's shooting for the stars, right? I mean, that's Star Citizen. And so, and I like that because it pushes people to work harder and better. And if you know, and if you just try and hit 50% of what he wants, then you've got this incredible you know, level of detail and you know, imagination and the games you're making. And so, and I quite enjoy that. And we work well together because you know, I'm very, you know, obviously I've done a bunch of direction design myself and stuff, but I'm actually, you know, folding quite easily into much more on the sort of the production and procedure side of stuff, of making sure when we have all these issues is then, you know, my job is to go and make sure, right, we have the right structures in place, build the stuff, go around and make sure we're coordinating properly between the studios, make sure we've got the right teams and that kind of stuff. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. And then every now and then I get to just sit down and do some design, which I got to do today and the last few days and stuff like that, which I really enjoy as well. But a lot of it just at the moment is that there's quite a lot of travel going around and making sure the organisation supports the needs of the game.
Gotcha. Now, I'm a person, I have 3 brothers.
Mm-hmm.
It would give me pause if I ever decide, if one of my brothers asked me to come and work for them, because I've worked with my brothers before. Mm-hmm. So Chris has asked you to start a UK studio.
Yep.
Did the brother thing come in? How does the brother thing work?
So when we were younger, we fought like cats and dogs. Like really, you know, our parents couldn't leave us in the house together. It was that bad. I mean, but you know, but it was funny when more probably from my side. But when I hit about 16, 17, then our relationship changed completely, and we actually got on really well. And so that side of stuff's really good. You know, we still argue, but you know, it's a you know, an adult argument about you know, and sometimes it gets a bit passionate, and of course it always does. And when I think something's not right and so forth, and the great thing is we listen to each other and so forth. And at the end of the day, Chris is the CEO, so he makes the final decision. But I'm quite happy to, you know, have my opinion known as well. So, but that relation that works pretty well actually. You know, and that kind of stuff. You know, whereas when I was a bit younger, and Chris was always 2 years older than me, so he was always the older brother. So it was kind of like always a bit difficult.
Gotcha. All right, so you're creating a company, Foundry 42.
Yep.
Why not Cloud Imperium Games UK?
So because we wanted to, the reason why Chris bought us, bought us in places, but you know, asked to come on board in the first place, was to concentrate on Squadron 42. And so we kind of wanted a name which was to do with 42 and so forth and things. And so we just liked the idea of Foundry, because you're building something, things like that. We called it Foundry 42. It was the UK entity and stuff. And also there's you know, there is already a Cloud Imperium Games UK as well, which is a different part of the company and so forth. So we're the development arm, and then basically and then the development arm basically, you know, I just don't want to get into too much detail. It you know, basically is owned by the publishing arm and so forth. It's just all you know, stuff
it's very convoluted.
So the development side was called Foundry 42, and then Foundry 42 is not just the UK office now; it's also the German office as well. Is part of the same company. So the whole European development arm is basically Foundry 42, and there's now I think about 220, 210, 220 of us now in the 2 offices. So it's quite a big chunk.
So you've agreed to start a company. You've got a name. What's that process like? Where do you start? Like, obviously, you have to find a place to work. You're in your second location.
So basically, we had a discussion. I then made the really hard decision to hand in my notice and leave a bunch of guys I really enjoyed working with. And then I just started, you know, the location I had set up the original company was in Winslow. We loved the location. I liked it. That's the reason I picked there in the first place. Got good transport hubs. Manchester Airport is literally a 5-minute drive away, or you can walk it in probably 15, 20 minutes. There's a mainline train station which goes through the country to London up to Manchester, which is literally a 2-minute walk, from the office. And so we decided to stay in Wilmslow. So I just basically went around, looked for buildings which were available, contacted a surveyor, in England surveyors, someone who basically helps you get the property sorted, and then just took it from there and built it out. When I left, there was a core group of about 4 guys who really wanted to join, who've been working for me for years. Nick Elms, who's creative director, Derek Senior, who's a tech director, Phil Meller, who's the lead designer on Squadron 42. And so we all kind of we got together, and so we kind of left Travellers at the same time. And then we were fortunate enough that a few more guys from Travellers, once we'd left, contacted us and wanted to join us and so forth. And so originally the course of maybe 20 people were some guys from the Lego games, but then now the company is we're like I said, I think in our office now about 170 in the UK office, and there's probably, now it's the vast majority are all people from a lot of different companies, from a lot of different countries. We've brought people back from Canada, from the US, have come over from, all over Europe and so forth and things. We've got a really good development crew there.
Gotcha. Now, we announced Foundry 42 at CitizenCon that year, which was October. So between August and October, where was the company when we announced it?
So obviously from August, we handed my notice, and it take 4 weeks, and so I didn't leave so I handed my notice at the beginning of September for a member, and so I finally left working Travellers in the beginning of October, and then the company ran from my office at home for about 2-3 months. So I have so there was basically 5 of us working out of the office when we got going, and then if people remember, go way back, you might remember there's 1 or 2 shots we might have done in this sort of very small area if you go way back to the old Arc stuff, and that was in the old office. And so the first guy to join us there was David Gill, who we know as Bowen, who's our lead UI programmer, and he was there as well with the office, and we're getting the code base and working the stuff from home. And we were working there while the office was getting built out. And of course, as soon as we get into the office, we did. And we got in so fast that literally the builders were still working around us. And we just got one little room sorted, and we just all dove in there and just put all the desks in there. And by then we had about another 3 or 4 people joining us. And there was a little thriving group of us in this one room. And then, I think when we finally got on the floor, there was maybe about 14 of us. And then we just built from there, really.
Now, this is one of those things that gets often forgotten. That whole first year, we're building the game, but we're also building the company.
Oh yeah, no, we're still building the company. And it's not just getting people; it's getting the right people in and finding them. And then once you get them in, you've got to get them trained up. They've got to spend time learning the code base, and that kind of stuff, that sort of stuff. So yeah, we grew from 14 to like 170 in the space of just a little bit over 2 years. And we are very selective about making sure we get the right people, because if you get the wrong people in, it can really set you back in a lot of ways, because you think stuff's been covered, it's not, it hasn't been, you have to fix stuff up and so forth and things. So yeah, but it was like, so we've been building the company. We started on 1 floor of the building room, which is in Wilmslow. We then got the 2nd floor last year, and now we've just got another floor, which we just moved into a few months ago. So we're on 3 floors now. And it's just this never. And then we basically decided to obviously go into the team structure. Pretty much the whole audio group, apart from there's some support in Austin, is all based in the UK. And so we then when we moved the floor, we had to then rebuild out and get proper audio suites and audio rooms in there and so forth. I know some of the backers who've done visits around our office will have seen it all and the layout and so forth and things. But it's always ever changing, and just getting things sorted. Then you grow, and then you have to try and make room for people. And then we go through phases where everyone's just crammed in, and it's like like some sort of sweatshop. And then we get another floor, and we can just sort of spread people out.
So when did you move into that building? Was it, you said you were moved
in the building in December 2013. Yeah. Okay.
So December 2013, we're talking 14 months since the original pledge campaign started. We've got an Austin office. We've just built out an LA office. We're just getting the UK office going, and you guys are about to take over Squadron 42 development.
The original idea was we would go and run Squadron 42. Yeah.
Okay. So what condition was Squadron 42 in when you took it over?
It was obviously it was very basic, so it's sort of, bare bones stuff in terms of like the whole project. I mean, you can't, that's what, when you're dealing, even having the leg up of having the Crytek, obviously the technology needs and has needed, and as everyone knows, I mean, we spent a huge amount of resource and time last year, basically making sure it could run the way it needs to do to run the game and so forth. So we have like, just in terms of like all the 64, bit changes we have to make, all that kind of stuff is a huge amount of work we have to go through. And so you're building the code base out, you're making all these sort of changes to make the game work. And Squadron 42 is the same, because obviously it's a shared code base, and so we're working on it. So we basically started working on the assets. We came out with what the story plan was and worked that with Chris and Dave Haddock, and then Will came on as well, working on the stuff and things to get the story fleshed out. And then we have a large design. And then we started hiring the designers to then start getting all the levels broken out. So we have like all the sort of different levels there to play through and so forth.
You've sort of led me into this now. We're talking about different departments. There's the audio, there's the designers. Give me just a short breakdown of Foundry 42. What departments exist in Foundry 42?
So we have Foundry 42 now. We have the audio departments there. We have the environment pipelines led out of that is led out of the UK. So we have about, I think it's about 18 environment artists in the UK, but then also we have environment support in Canada as well.
From behavior?
From behavior, right. And then we have the ship pipelines led out of the UK as well, and we have I think it's about 17, 18 ship artists in the UK, and I tell you what, you need them when you're making capital ships. I mean, I guess you guys have seen the Starfarer, but when you see some of the size of the other ships we're making, and the Idris, by the way, which looks amazing and is pretty much done, but then we have a Javelin, we have a Bengal, we have stuff like that.
Pretty much done, not done, guys.
But it's like, so we have sort of teams, and so that's led out there. And then we also obviously have a ship team here in LA and the ship team in Austin as well. Smaller, but and stuff like that. We have the props pipeline is out of the UK, so basically all the sort of props and stuff it's led out there, as well as behaviour. Once again, helps with that. What else we've got in the UK? It's pretty much a lot. I mean, the UK has obviously the largest body of employees and so forth, and so we basically do kind of do a lot of the sort of horsepower in terms of like just making sure a lot of the assets and stuff come out from the teams.
And not just for Squadron 42, for Star System.
Yes, it's global. So all the environments and ships basically for the for the PU and stuff like that on those pipelines are basically pushed for the UK. And then also we have there's a bunch of animation work that comes out of there, as well as Austin does a bunch of animation work, and then the German office got some animation as well. And then the German office, as part of Foundry 42, they have the cinematics pipeline team, and also they sort of run the FPS side of things, although they work very close to the UK. The German office and UK office, like I said, the same company basically, and so we work in the same time zone, so we're very close. So a lot of even though some of the production's led out of Germany for that stuff, there's a lot of the people in the UK who work on that stuff with the German office, and then once again it's the other way around as well. Okay. And of course Germany does a load of the core tech, because we were very fortunate to pick up a bunch of the guys who pretty much wrote the CryEngine in the first place, and they basically have been doing a bunch of work, and then you guys have seen that with stuff like the procedural planets and things like that. So.
Cool. Now, 2014, mostly building infrastructure, building the company up, building the foundations for Squadron 42, getting the tech stuff. One of the popular terms that gets thrown around a lot that many people may not understand is vertical slice. Can you talk to us about what a vertical slice is? So
vertical slice is basically taking one part of the game and making sure that it hits up all the different areas of what you're trying to achieve in that game. I mean, you don't get everything typically, but you try and say, right, so say a vertical slice for Squadron 42 would be you're out flying, and so you work out, you'd basically pick a mission which basically has you flying around, getting out, EVAing, doing something in space, landing on a structure, going into the structure, wandering around, having a big FPS battle, that kind of stuff. And then you're basically trying to hit up all the elements, space, ground, and then also you'd have interactive. So a big thing in Squadron is the whole idea that you live in a living, breathing ship. So a vertical slice would have you, also wandering around, the ship you live on, talking to people, doing stuff, as well as then the story elements and the cinematics and stuff like that. So that's kind of what it is. And so you're taking a little section and saying, this is basically the game in this little section, and this basically proves that we can get all this sort of stuff done. And then you sit there, and if you look at it and go, wow, that's awesome, then you know, okay, all we're doing now is going down, is knocking out all the other rest of the stuff.
Gotcha. So anything else you were working on in 2014? Vertical slice, getting the technology ready, 64-bit conversion.
2014. No, I mean a lot of 2014. So basically, I said we came on to do Squadron 42 work, but then there was and originally when we came on, the team we weren't planning on actually having a large studio. That was not the plan. It was we were maybe 40, 50 people. We were going to work on some stuff. We were going to do some outsourcing and so forth things. One big thing happened in the UK, which was. Which actually then changed. This is what it's changed around the way we do some development. Is the UK government brought in a tax credit, which basically meant that for development for games and so forth in the UK, that if basically to incentivize to bring back, because the games industry in the UK has been pretty run down and stuff like that, and especially where I live in the Northwest, even more so and so forth. And so it's been really good for the UK in terms of a lot of things. It was great, because like I said, we've been bringing people back to the UK as usual, but they basically give you this tax credit where they'll give you money back for the money you spend. And so it just all of a sudden became, a really, obviously, of course you're going to, when you have that sort of ability to not only, obviously we're very, very lucky to have all the support from the backers, but then if we can use the backers' money to get more support, so we can put more money into the game, because the government has tax credits, which meant that we decided then we were going to expand the workforce in the UK, and it made much more sense to basically put more bodies in the UK than in other areas where there wasn't the sort of incentive from the government. So that's kind of what happened. So we built the whole team up for that kind of stuff. And as we built, we then said, well, okay, well, it's not just Squadron 42, which we'll be doing in the UK, then we should actually be supporting the PU. And so now we do, in the UK, yes, we are, heavily doing Squadron 42, but and the same thing is, we get a lot of support Squadron 42 from the US as well, and from the German, and from the Frankfurt office, as well as Austin here. So everyone works together on Squadron 42, and everyone works together on the Persistent Universe. But then we also do a lot of, so we do the FPS stuff, like we talked about, the German office, we do that kind of stuff, but we do a bunch of stuff on everything together as one company. And I think originally it was an interesting dynamic when we first started, because you can have this between the studios, because you have an ability to work really well together if you do it right, because basically we're working on something in the UK, and then like now I'm in the US now, obviously over here, and then they do a handoff, and so I'm here, we'll have the handoff, and then if there's any issues, we get to fix those stuff, and then we do a handoff back to the UK, and it works really well. So you're almost getting 24-hour development and to support and so forth. However, if it's not organised right, it can go the other way, because then you're waiting a day to hear back from someone and so forth. And I think, and so we worked through a bunch of those issues, in the early days, in early 2014, of how we're going to work together as an organisation, and then getting people, and then also really working out who owns what in a lot of ways, because it's really important that like you don't feel that everybody understands what their ownership is, what they're in charge of, because if you get a situation where two people aren't sure who's doing what or who's in charge of what, then it can lead to discussions and problems and morale issues and so forth and things. So it's very much so a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, and we've been working out is like exactly who's in charge of what, and it's very clear production responsibilities with different producers in different studios. And even if there's people they're working with in another studio, if they're the guy in charge of that sort of stuff, then they know that they're the people coordinating it. So you don't have stuff, because it's not only just the fact that people might get upset, oh, they're treading on our toes, but it's also the fact that sometimes stuff just doesn't get done because everybody goes, oh, I thought you were doing that, and they go, oh no, I thought you were doing that. And so now, we've been just as an organisation, as we grow, we've been basically working through all these issues, making it a lot better, and now it's like really great the way the organisation works together, and just it's really solid.
Yeah, we didn't have the benefit of being a company that's existed for 5 years before we started this project.
Absolutely.
So we're having to discover these procedures, write these protocols.
Oh, you're building everything, organisation. You're building, it's everything to do with that. So we're trying to build a game. We're trying to fund the game the way it's never been done before. We're trying to build it in the way it's never been done before. And we're trying to build an organisation at the same time, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. But we are really fortunate, because I have to say I have never worked with such a talented bunch of guys. They're just like this group of people just from all over the world, just really good. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, you're welcome, Erin. I do what I can. All right, so 2015. Now we're getting ready for the performance capture shoot.
Yep.
For Squadron 42. What was that like? How do you set up something like that? How did we get in bed with Imaginarium?
So that was more, once again, because originally we were thinking about doing it was going to make sense to do the shoot in LA. But once again, because of the tax credit situation, once again, as I said, master stroke by the government, as far as I'm concerned, we decided to move it to the UK because once again, any sort of money that's spent in Britain is 20% back. So we're working in Imaginary, working in Ealing Studios, and so you get that tax incentive back again. So that was basically the reason for doing it in the UK. And Imaginarium was because we went and we spent some time going around talking to the different houses and the people who we really felt were in sync with us and felt really good to work with and had very good conversation with and stuff like that and really seemed to be shared our sort of ideas of what we want to do, but also in terms of where technology was going and how maybe we could work together and do stuff. We're Imaginarium, and so we had very good conversations with them. And so we decided to basically, go that route. And then John Schimmel, obviously, who comes from the background of linear production, then put the whole thing together. We got the people in. It's a bit of a, getting the right people in, building the team. And a performance capture shoot is not unlike a film shoot. It's pretty much you need the same people doing the same sort of stuff. You're basically filming people, but in a different way. And so it's so that side of the business is kind of pretty much people know how that works. So things.
Mm-hmm. What was it like getting those emails from John Schilmer, whoever that? Oh yeah, we've got Mark Hamill. Oh yeah, we've got Gary Oldman. with those good moments. Were you there at the
it's good.
process?
I think with some of those guys, it's fantastic. The cast was a really really great cast to have, and that was a lot of fun. And it really helps because Chris has got some good relationships with some of those guys from his past and stuff. And so, and it's kind of like, and it's fun just when they get on the set as well. Just seeing the guys there, and I think they kind of had a lot of fun coming on there and doing and working on the and doing this as well. So it was all around a great experience.
Okay. So we do 3 or 4 months of the initial shoot. I don't remember exactly. 3 to 4 months.
I think it was. No, it was about 8 weeks. I think.
Okay. The setup, the production. I'm thinking the time that Chris.
Well, yeah. I mean, you always have to have like the production teams running beforehand to make sure it's all set. But the actual time on stage, I think it was 6-7 weeks. I think something like that.
Gotcha. And then so that stuff comes back to Foundry UK. I guess. Well, it goes to everybody, whoever needs it, right? What do we do with that footage?
So when all the footage goes in, it then it gets processed, so we can use it, and it goes to the animation team. And there's there's obviously the body side of it, and there's the facial side. And we have one team of guys, which is led by John Jones, who's in Derby, and he basically has a crew of guys who basically get all the facial stuff, and then they work with Cubic Motion, who basically go and get all the camera stuff and bring it back and make sure that the facial stuff's working on the characters and stuff. And then you have the body guys, and all the body stuff comes back to our teams in Austin, in the UK, and in Germany, and then they take all that information, and then we get it in the game. And then we have all the facial scans, which go off to Free Lateral for team, and then they basically the ones who come up with the faces and so forth, which then we take all that information and play the stuff on.
So we've got the performance capture shoot done. We're processing the animations. What's the last half of 2015 for Foundry 42? What are we working on now?
Well, I mean, obviously Squadron, and also, that was the big heavy lifting for 2.0 and getting that stuff out, and that was a mammoth effort from a lot of people, not just because of the huge technology. Can you imagine you're basically got all this work going behind the scenes, and then you get it running. And then, that was probably the longest PTU cycle we were on with people. But basically, you're basically throwing out a whole new code base, and so you're just working through. And so that was a good amount of work.
So the decision is made to create the mini PU, the baby PU. Tony had an interesting name for it. I can't remember what it was now. Not the micro. Protoverse. You wanted to call it the Protoverse, whatnot. When did that decision come about? When did we decide we were ready to start the baby PU?
That was always the plan. I mean, that was always the plan once the tech was involved, but we couldn't do that without this, the 64-bit. So we can have the huge spaces, and then also, and there was a lot of other tech and stuff that had to be built for that. But as soon as we had that, then the idea was what we were going to do is get actually the the seed of the experience of what Star Citizen is out there. And we're going to start with basically doing a little corner of the Crusader. And so that sort of area, and then we're going to build out Crusader, to basically become the first sort of like system with all and stuff. And so we'll have all different planets in there, and then the system is
Stanton System.
Stanton, thank you. We talked about this before, and it always slips my mind. And so basically, what we're building out is Stanton System, and we're going to build out all the locations of Stanton System. We're going to get the players doing lots of stuff through, because you know how the systems are so huge. There's a huge amount of gameplay. I mean, there's more gameplay in one system in our game than there'll be in most games out there. And so now what we're doing is we're seeding in all the different locations, and we're putting in, we'll be putting in the ability to, do missions you can always kind of do, but persistence goes in very soon. And with persistence, then basically you have the ability to go in and earn money and do stuff and buy stuff and play and trade, and obviously as things we'll layer these in, but you'll be able to trade, and you'll be able to go mining and earn stuff, and you'll be able to do different missions, and you'll be able to do things like that and so forth. And so this is what we're doing. So right now, this year, what people are going to see is a huge, they're going to see the whole of what Star Citizen just taking shape and the ability to do that, along with obviously all the sort of capital ships that are coming online, so people can really just do cool things together and that sort of level as well.
Okay. So shopping. It's going to come online here soonish. No dates. Shopping, and that's not just for ArcCorp. There will be some component of that eventually.
No. This. We will be putting shopping in Crusader.
Gotcha. So there'll be a little boutique
in
on
Stanton
the
System. You'll go there. You will basically be able to so you can go down. You're playing the game and you earn some what we're going to call alpha, UEC, and you'll go in and you'll be able to go and play the game, and you literally will play it like you would play a game, and you go and trade, you'll earn some money, you'll spend some money, there'll be items you'll be able to buy and so forth and things like that. And we're going to run this alpha UEC cycle for probably a long, long time, and then every time we come up with a new version, we'll probably wipe it and start people again, and then we'll adjust stats again, and so we're going to use this as a huge balance pass and keep on going with people, but all the time people will be able to play and actually go and experience and build stuff up and buy new stuff and weapons and components to put on their ships, and buy clothes and do all this kind of stuff and things like that, and buy armor and weapons, and actually earn and do stuff and get together with people and do things like that.
Okay. And to clarify for those, we are in alpha and we have UEC, but what we're talking about is a new temporary currency that we're at the moment calling alpha UEC.
Yes, so basically anything, UEC is something at the moment that people have paid their good hard earned cash on, and if you buy anything with that, then you get to keep it, you get to use it any time. Stuff like that. So if you've bought it with your actual UEC, then you'll have that when you go into Crusade, and you'll be able to use those sort of items. All we're talking about here is we're going to give the ability, which I know a lot of people have been looking forward to. So basically, when you go in, you'll now start earning UEC in the game, but it won't be the same as that money you paid for. Because
it's like funny money.
Because yes, it's funny money, because basically we want it in there so people can go there and test it and do the system and buy stuff and build themselves up. But obviously, once, like I said, obviously at some point it'll get wiped when we maybe do a new video. I mean, sometimes we may not wipe it, sometimes we may and so forth. But the idea is when we have big new upgrades, then we'll probably wipe it and then get people starting again to test it, because we may well be changing prices, we may be doing this sort of stuff, we may be adding new features or items and so forth, new missions and things and all kind of stuff and so forth. And so basically, the Alpha UEC is basically just for people to go in and play that. So if you've just got your Aurora and that's it, and you're going to have to go in, and if you work really hard and go and do a lot of missions and earn lots of credits, you're going to be able to upgrade your Aurora. You can buy a new ship, all that kind of stuff. Although buying a new ship in the game is quite expensive.
Yeah.
You don't. It's like if you went and bought like an aircraft carrier, and nowadays, it's you've got to. It takes a long time to get there and so forth and things like that.
Gotcha. So it's a thing that we can use. We can dump a bunch into the market. We can pull a bunch out of the market. It's how we're gonna figure out the entire economy, basically.
And the great thing is we're going to have our community with us, helping us. Explore that, balance it, get the feedback. I mean, already on the PTU stuff we do, it's fantastic. I mean, just right now in the middle of getting 2.3 out, and the feedback we get is immense, because every morning, I've not said it before, but we literally are on the forums, and on a daily basis, we have guys who specifically just go through, look at the issues, get them down, look at, okay, are some issues just like a single thing, or is it a lot of people and so forth? We get that sort of feedback, and we get that feedback every morning, and then we go through it, and then we get to implement that stuff, and that's why we can have really fast turnaround and stuff, which we just you don't get anywhere else. And we can't afford to hire 100,000 testers, right? So it's like, it's great having this community which supports us, not only financially, but actually, just to come and basically, work with us to give us the feedback we need to make the games as good as it's going to be.
Okay, so we're adding shopping, we're adding cargo, because that's necessary for trade, I assume. Mining, I assume that'll be some part of Yela in the asteroid field, I imagine. We had Luke Presley on the show a couple weeks ago. We talked about voxel asteroids eventually coming to support that.
Don't forget, our procedural stuff is just around the corner.
Yeah. I noticed Crusader moved a lot closer to the space station in 2.3. So procedural, we're going to be able to fly down to Crusader?
You're going to be able to fly down to, maybe not Crusader, but you'll be able to fly down into areas and planets and stuff like that and so forth at the moment. But yes, that's the whole idea, and that's and like I said, that was actually one of the awesome things about getting the German office on board. It's not only because they know the tech really well, which really helps in a lot of different areas and really helped actually getting 2.0 out, but I mean, it's because procedural stuff for us was like a stretch goal, which was like, I mean, it wasn't even, it was like, we'll get to that when we get the game out and so forth, in fact. But then the guys came on board and did this amazing stuff, and we're like, and now already, because we have that, it's not just the fact that we can be able to fly down the planet, that procedural stuff allows us to do loads of other stuff, because it allows us to, so we have asteroid bases in space, which will be procedurals, you can build them up and go do stuff and things like that as well, and so forth and things. So and all that tech, and it allows us to do a lot of other things, which is people are going to see the goodness of pretty soon. So
I remember the day Chris came. We're in different halves of the office. He doesn't usually come to our half unless he's leaving for the day. And he comes over with a flash drive. He comes to my desk. I'm like, Chris is walking to my desk. What is going on? He goes, put this in and watch this. He was so happy. It was the very first iteration of Pupil The Planet. Yeah. And we just showed it. He goes, Ben, come here. And we all gathered around and we watched it. We were all just flabbergasted.
Now it's
like, we're here already. It's like, we're here.
No. I mean, and the funny thing is, it's like, because it was Christmas time just before, and Marco, who's been working with some of the guys over there, just said, I think we should just show this, and I didn't really know what to expect. And then it's like, wow, okay. And then they had all the tech working, and then Sean did a lot of work on that, and as well, and getting stuff and stuff like that. But it was pretty amazing stuff.
Marco's fantastic. I've sent him a couple requests for interview stuff, and he's just like, I just want to make the game.
Yes, the German office are not big on interviews. To be honest, we're not in the UK either. No, we're not. I think it's a European thing. The cameras are not our friends, so we try and stay away as much as possible.
It's worth it for you guys to make the game that you guys are making, so we're happy. Some folks are like, why don't you get them on camera more often? It's like they're making the game. Us Americans are a little celebrity happy, so we're happy to be in front of the camera. Hi, Mom. This gets asked a lot, so I want to ask you, what happens when Squadron 42 is done?
When Squadron 42 is done, then we basically move on to episode 2. And then obviously a bunch of other work for the PU. Like I said, the teams, it's one code base, the team's very interchangeable, so people will be working on the different things and stuff like that. But because a lot of the work we do now for the persistent universe is we drive it all with Squadron 42 features and assets, and then basically when those come online, then the persistent universe guys can then take that and then put it into the game.
Gotcha.
And so, when we see updates will come, and then stuff will start working. Like, oh look, the radar scanning is doing lots of cool stuff, and of course this is all stuff for Squadron 42. But then it's been used in the persistent universe. And then the great thing then is people in the persistent universe are using it, and then we're working out, okay, this is how they use it, or this is cool, this isn't cool, and then we make those changes back in. But the great thing is it just enhances the experience for Squadron 42, because basically, all the fixes, everything they're doing, all the feedback we're getting means that when we actually ship Squadron 42, it won't be, we'll have had like a couple of years of feedback on what works and what doesn't work, which is why I'm really excited about it, because I think we've got this opportunity to make this game which is going to be really well thought through, and a lot of the systems and the way things work, because we'll have so many rounds of feedback about the stuff.
Yeah, I'm super excited about Squadron 42. I'm more a multiplayer guy, personally. I haven't played a lot of single player games in the last couple of years, but everything I've seen for Squadron 42, and I've tried to stay away. Which is hard working here, but I've tried to stay as spoiler free as I can, but it looks, everything I've seen looks so amazing.
When you're wandering around the Bengal carrier,
as one
a
does.
javelin, all those kind of stuff. So it's a funny thing, because a lot of the we've got, like I said, we've got a huge ship team, and they're working on stuff. But the vast majority of the assets we're working on are all Squadron 42 assets, and we use a lot of the PU stuff will be in Squadron 42 as well. But there's a lot of assets there which are not in the PU now, won't be until after Squadron 42 ships. And so, although yes, you know, we've got the Starfarer out, which is in Squadron 42 as well, and people play that, and obviously, you know, the Idris and stuff like that will come out. But there are so many other ships there which you won't see, and of course at some point now, then we will start putting them into PU. But that'll be pretty impressive when you go to a system and then you jump in and there's just like a huge Bengal carrier sitting there with like its fighters around it and stuff. And you know, you better not be a pirate at that point.
Which leads me to my last question for you. This is a big one from our community, so I have to ask it. The Idris. Are we going to see it in the persistent universe, in our hangar? Well, obviously not in our hangars, but are players going to get access to it before Squadron 42?
That's still up for discussion. There's two chains of thought on that, and I don't think we've really. It's going to be ready, like soon. But whether we're using it in Squadron 42 now. You know, it's been set up in game. There's a lot of stuff going on for it, so that it's actually, you know, I think some of the backers who come to our office, we love showing them everything, and they've seen it, and they've walked around and seen this shit. It's just more about whether, because it's a big part of Squadron 42 and it's actually going to be the ship you start on and live in for a while, it's whether we just want to, if we feel like we may be spoiling it for the players, if they, you know, if we put it out there and everyone knows this inside out and all that kind of stuff, then when it comes to Squadron 42, it's not going to be such a novelty. And so we're going to have to make a call or a thing on that. I mean, about what we do.
Yeah, there are virtues on both sides of the argument.
Now, obviously, I know people who've played for their Idris and won it will go, I want my Idris and I want to do that kind of stuff and things like that. But yeah, there is that stuff. And there are other areas where it would be, although the ship will be done and it'll be working for what we need for Squadron 42, because it's a single player campaign in Squadron 42 and because you are not actually piloting the ship yourself and so forth and things, it completely flies properly, that kind of stuff. But a lot of the seat action stuff, there'll be, because it's a big capital ship and the way we do seats for larger ships, and you'll start seeing that for the Starfarer. And stuff like that are kind of different, and so there's a lot of UI drilled down on what each seat can do, and so there's a little bit of work around that as well. But yeah, it's going to be. I can't give right now we're holding on to it. That may change depending.
You gave exactly the answer I was wanting, so we're still deciding.
Completely ambiguous.
No, it's just we wanted to get that information out there that a call had not been made yet. So Erin, thank you so much for taking your time to chat with us. It was a very long interview. We had to split it into two pieces, but we'll put the whole thing up after the fact on our YouTube so people don't have to watch it in two pieces. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. It was fun being here.
Yeah, have a good flight back, and back to you guys.
Thank you.